Okay, I think I just start. Other people can still drop in then in a few minutes. But yeah, welcome everyone to today's L&D Executive Round Table. Good to be back. We've got a nice topic today. We look a bit into underlying potential problems that might cause performance issues in L&D. So the topic is, are L&D strategies targeting the right problems? And yeah, we look beyond the skill gaps. We have a speaker on today that's experienced in ontological and neurolinguistic coaching as well. Obviously going to introduce her a little bit later in a bit more detail. But yeah, for everyone, I see definitely a few new faces on here as well. So I will start to just give a very brief outline on what kind of event this is today and what to expect. And then we can start with the actual topic, of course. So we host these L&D executive roundtables as a sort of networking platform, a regular event that we are hosting to give L&D professionals a platform to exchange ideas and experience as well and get some new angles. And of course, based on that, by nature of the event, usually we have high-level learning and professional development, high-level learning and development professionals on here, but also, of course, trainers, coaches, other L&D service providers too. And depending on the topic, sometimes you also get C-level executives that might want to get some new input, some ideas of maybe how to strengthen or enhance their L&D strategies, their L&D programs in their organizations. And the reason we host these events is that we ourselves, as part of the L&D community, actually started looking for some sort of platform, some sort of webinar where we can get insights on new topics and ideas, but which is not like just a one-way information stream, but a bit more open, a bit more interactive. And yeah, we found it a bit difficult to find a lot of these. So we started to just, I guess, chip in and host our own series of events as well, which is this L&D Executive Roundtable. And the idea, again, is really to get the opportunity to learn a bit more about a specific topic, but then also foster an exchange within the community, get new ideas, exchange experience, best practices, ask questions, and yeah, connect with like-minded people, really. And the way we structure these, and that's going to be the same case for today as well, we always build them around a specific focus topic that's learning or education related usually, and then have a keynote speaker on that gives a presentation on the topic. And then after that, the idea is really to open up this round, give everyone the chance to ask questions, maybe share a bit about what they do, about their experience as well. And yeah, really make it sort of interactive with one another. Then I will give a very brief overview about who we are as the host. I really keep this short and sweet though. We are a Singapore-based organization focusing on building learning technology, education technology, also some other platforms in the AI space. You can see we have a range of standard solutions that we offer, like Knowledge Gym, for example, which is a tool that helps bridging that gap between learning something and training, but then actually also internalizing that knowledge and applying it practically on the job. AI Conversation Coach, which is an AI-enabled role play. So you can basically create your own AI persona, your own counterpart, starting by the visual appearance, of course, but then also give it specific characteristics and then really outline the scenario and the use case, and then practice a conversation in that use case. The AI Knowledge Assistant, which is a retrieval augmented generation tool. So meaning basically it's a bit like your own personalized ChatGPT in that sense, where you can build your own knowledge base and you can ask questions, and the answers that you're getting are based on that knowledge base. You can get very specific answers to your organizational use case and context, or specific devices or specific products. We built other tools too, smaller AI standalone tools, like question generators, for example, quiz generators from uploaded documents, learning games as well. So gamified learning is something we focus a bit on as well. And other HR related tools, for example, like CV analyzers, And we do quite a bit in healthcare too. And we completely build customized solutions as well for the SIT here in Singapore, for example. We've done quite a few projects. But I think that's probably enough about us for now. We're not the center of attention today. So I will happily introduce today's speaker to everyone. So I'm very happy today that we're joined by Ying Loh. Thanks again, Ying, for joining us, and great to have you on. Ying is a burnout prevention and ontological coach, and she's the founder of her own company called Dasein Partners, which is an organization that supports clients internationally in not just burnout prevention, but also recovery, and really helping people find purpose-driven or their purpose and facilitate purpose-driven growth. Before that, she looks back on about 8 years experience in Singapore's public sector, where she was also holding roles in organizational development and learning and development. So another angle she's very familiar with too. And credentialed by top international coaching bodies. So she's an associate certified coach under the ICF, and she's also a Newfield certified coach. And she's also, on top of that, certified in NLP, so neuro-linguistic programming, and blends the neuroscience-based approach, that neuroscience-based coaching, with real-world application. Make sure to check out her podcast. So she's the co-host of the Curious Co podcast, where she speaks with business leaders and community builders about building relationships with people. Interpersonal relationship building, what's worked for them and what hasn't maybe. So quite interesting. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just the 20th episode that's been published. So congratulations on that milestone as well.
Thanks.
Make sure everyone to give it a listen. And very cool, interesting piece of trivia as well. She used to be a Singapore national level table tennis player. That's really, really impressive. Just thought I'd throw that in there because that's pretty cool. But yeah, then again, thanks, Ying. I'll, without further ado, I think let you share your screen. And feel free to start with your presentation. Looking forward to that.
Thanks, Max. Thanks for such a lovely introduction. Can everyone hear me fine? Yeah? Cool. I
Yes.
love how, we have quite an intimate group of about 10 people. And it's like a nice size for us to talk about our topic today. Let me share my screen. 1 second. And Max, if you could just shout out once you see it, that would be great.
Yes. Yes. Now we see it.
Okay? Okay, cool. Okay. So Max gave a really lovely title for, oh, I'm hearing something. Okay, cool. So Max gave a really lovely title for today's session. And I thought, you know what? I'm a coach. I have L&D background, I have OD background. What would be interesting to talk about L&D that maybe L&D professionals or people in the industry may not really hear on a day-to-day basis? That's, something that maybe you might not really think about, or and where I want to pitch today's sharing is not to solve all your L&D problems. I think that's not realistic, but it's to give us a space to pause and think, actually, are there some new questions that surface for me from today? Or actually some insights that I got. I may have had these insights before, and am I revisiting them now that I'm having this session? So my goal really is to offer like a fresh perspective of how we can look at L&D, and to, maybe land each of you with more questions, I think there's value also in thinking the space of questions. So what I'll be sharing today is actually how beyond the skills, beyond the good work that you as L&D professionals are already doing with the tools and all that, how can we augment what you are doing in the L&D space by putting on an ontological coaching approach, right, to augment your current L&D learning and curriculum design for those who are doing that. So, Max, I want to make it a bit more interactive, and I love how we have a very cozy group of 10 people around there. Think of an L&D program you designed or participated in? What challenges did you observe or face? And I'd love if you could just type your responses in the chat. Anything that comes to mind. Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. What challenges did you face in either a program you designed or participated in? Just going to open the chat and see what we have. Okay, Christian says motivation of participants. Applying new information practically. Okay. Same here. Thank you, Sida. I hope I'm spelling your name correctly. Marhani says engagement from participants. Hafid says maintain motivation. Just gonna wait a bit more. I think there are a few more voices we have not heard. Oh, Christian also was adding on non-targeted content. Christian, what do you mean by that? You mean not relevant content? If you could just unmute, if it's convenient. If not, you could just type. Okay, yes. Gavin says maintain focus and motivation. There are quite a few responses around motivation, engagement, and a bit on application. Cool. And actually, all these challenges, if you can just see, even with these few responses, these are not unique challenges. These are challenges that we often face in L&D programs. And that's why we have, tools, like example, what Max was sharing about what Blue Elephants offers. All these things are also looking at how to target, how do you increase motivation? How do you help people apply what they're learning, right? And that's really a good space for us to continue to the next slide, which is putting aside all the knowledge learning application you're helping your participants get, or you want them to get at the end of the programs. What if deeper consciousness of our being as people, as individuals, could actually deepen your knowledge learning during these L&D programs? Okay. So, you know what? I'm not here to talk about, what's not being done well. I think there's a lot that's being done well. I think as L&D professionals, you are also working hard to try to improve your programs and put in more tools and resources to support your participants. Generally, in training programs, we see that things are already being done well, right? We identify and achieve the behavioral learning outcomes for our participants. We have structured learning pathways. We have all these blended learning models, facilitation, self-paced learning, etc. We have like a very engaging formats, even modern learning platforms using tech, for content access, tracking progress, reinforcing learning. All these are already being done well. But actually, what can we do to then augment what's being done well is to focus on what I mentioned previously, which is the learner's being. Precisely because learning happens through how we observe and how we are as individuals. So, brief overview, right? Okay, it's like, okay, Kai Ying is an ontological coach. What is that? Essentially, ontological coaching is the study of how people observe the world, how you and me, we observe the world, and how our observation of the world through the lens we put on shapes our own action, our own learning, and our own transformation as people. So in the L&D space, a lot of it also focuses on the knowledge learning, the application. And here, where I'm coming in to share actually how we can augment that is that learning happens not just in the head, but through our emotions, through our body, and how we relate to ourselves and others. Okay, so just throwing a bit of framework there, right? To give a bit of flavor, what is ontological coaching? So on the left, and I know there are like a few circles here, and I'll go through them. On the left, language, emotions, and body, these three areas make up our unique way of being. Okay, so what I mean, so language, it includes what we factually see and describe. For example, this is a phone, right? That's what we factually describe. Or we have subjective beliefs or opinions about something. Like, let's say this phone is ugly, or even broader beliefs and narratives about, how we see work, how we see family, how we see life. So that goes in the realm of language, our narratives, our beliefs, our opinions. There's the domain of the emotions, which is emotions that we typically feel or we don't feel as much of and we want to access more of. So for example, if let's say I'm someone who often feels anxiety about work, confidence, and I want to feel more confidence or more contentment or peace, right? So that's the realm of emotions. And the body, let's say, what is my body often like when I'm in the emotion of anxiety or, of anger? And if I want to shift to confidence, what does that then look like and feel like internally, sensationally? So these three domains of language, emotions, and body makes up me, you, as your own unique way of being. And how these three are always working in coherence or incoherence at times, which then drives the actions that we individually take in our lives and the behaviors that we demonstrate in life, which will then affect or result in the outcomes we get in our life or at work. Okay, so that's a really brief, just a brief background of ontological coaching. And when we talk about, we kind of throw in like the layer of L&D, right? How does this then relate to L&D? If you look at the learner, the participant of an L&D program that either you designed or you were part of, they would have their own unique way of being that is made up of their language, their own emotions, and their own body. And how they are in the program, how they participate in the program, what they do after the program, before the program, would then be driven by their way of being through these three domains, which then affects the results they get, either during the program or after the program. Who we are is essentially how we learn. And this is something that I think is not new to people. It's like, okay, yeah, if someone has a really close and fixed mindset, they're learning something new and like, no, that's not how it works. I know better, previously when I did that, that's the way it should be. They have a very close and fixed mindset. They're defensive. Naturally, there may typically be a slower learning uptake for them to be open to receive new ideas. Conversely, if you have someone who is more open, it's like, oh, curious, oh, what do you mean by that? Or no, oh, what can I do with that piece of information? That huge like growth mindset. They're more curious in taking their actions, trying new things, and then there's naturally typically higher engagement in how they're interacting with the content they're learning, and hence typically faster learning uptake. So these things are new. We know, oh yeah, if someone's defensive and closed, of course, they're not going to take in new information as fast or as willingly. And as if you're an L&D professional thinking about program design and delivery, how can you make use of the information of how a person's way of being and how you can intervene in that way can actually shift them to maybe being a bit more open, be more curious during their learning programs, right? By putting on that ontological coaching perspective. So how can we boost training effectiveness? Where we focus on the learner's being and the power of moods and emotions to drive their behavior and actions. So today I want to share just 3 frames for today on what this can look like for training program design. Okay, so the first is when we talk about designing behaviors and how that leads to participants identifying certain things for themselves. The second being, the focus on performance from an L&D program evaluation and how actually there's a shift in how we can look at the emotional readiness of participants. And then lastly, when we talk about teaching behaviors and designing programs to teach certain behaviors, helping participants also shift into not just the outward doing of things, but also a bit more, let's say, stillness in actively listening, getting that data in to inform in a more rich manner the behaviors they can take to get a better result. So the first one, I want to use the example of an onboarding program for new hires. Okay, so if you think about it, we all come in, each of us in this call will have very specific objectives for your own programs. But typically, for an onboarding program, you want to equip these new hires with tools and processes. You want to share standard SOPs, right? Or how they are expected to behave in their teams, in their roles. When you augment this with the ontological frame, it's not just about equipping them with the know-how and the SOPs and all that. It's also to support them when we talk about the way of being, to fully step into their new identity now as someone who's a new hire. And how, as a new hire, there's often this belief that I don't know. There's so much I don't know. There's so much uncertainty, so much change I'm going through. All this knowledge I have to take in. I sometimes they may feel overwhelmed. They may feel confused, lost. But how can we support them to fully step into that identity as someone who is a beginner in their role and to be fully confident in their beginnerhood, right? So examples of questions to surface through the ontological frame is, what are some beliefs you may have regarding using new tools or processes which may hold you back from actual practice? You're going deeper into the learner's being by asking these questions. Or another question to ask, what would confidence look and feel like for you in this new role or situation? There is a specific reason why we're asking questions about the learner's being, because when you ask these questions and you get the feedback from the learners, the new hires, you can then get a better understanding of themselves as people, to see actually how are they learning and taking in new information. What are they doing with it? Are there things that are holding them back from actually applying what you're teaching them? Okay. The second frame is performance to emotional readiness. So I want to use the example of a training program for newly promoted managers. Typically, the objectives of the program would be to teach managers to delegate work, give feedback to their subordinates and manage the overall performance of the team. Okay, so then what does augmenting this with an ontological frame look like? You could look at designing activities during the training program where participants name their fears as new managers for being seen as maybe weak or failing in front of their team. Some concerns they have, reflect on how they have through their years of work through their years of work in their careers, how they have built and gained and lost trust with others. What have they learned from their past experiences? What may they then, maybe some assumptions they're taking in today, or some beliefs they're taking in today, or some concerns then they're taking today, to inform them of, what are they afraid of or concerned about in managing their team moving forward. You could also design activities to encourage peer sharing about their personal stories and beliefs, to then really normalize the uncertainty that they have in the new role, and to build, shared trust early in the cohort. Okay, I see a question there, and let me see what it is. Okay, Wan Xuan, I see your question, and I will address it after this, okay? Okay. So then when they have this kind of peer sharing, then they can then build this community of support with each other. There is also, as new managers, a lot of pressure where they feel like they're being assessed, or they are actually being assessed and evaluated on how they're doing. And by designing a space where it's not about, hey, how are you performing as a manager, but to just for them to step in as people, say, now I'm this, I'm a new manager, and then I'm facing this discomfort in my transition, and for them to just reflect and apply what they're learning through what they're learning about themselves in this whole process, in this whole new experience they're going through. Oops. Okay. The last frame is about active listening. So one example would be a training program on customer service, where typically the program coverage would be, okay, if you're a relationship manager, it's about you have difficult customers. How do you respond to them? You teach certain lines that they say, certain behaviors to adopt in dealing with difficult customers, managing your tone and all that. And when you augment it with an ontological frame, it could be about, having that space with these customer service managers for them to reflect. Actually, what are your thoughts? Any assumptions you may have about difficult customers? Drawing on your own past experiences, drawing on your own observations of what you see from others. Identifying as customer relations officers, their own emotions about difficult customers. Maybe they have some concerns, some fears, some anxiety. And then to then say, okay, I'm acknowledging that they have all these emotions and concerns. To then shift, actually, okay, in this role right now, I'm also seeing that the customer is demanding, right? And the typical reaction could be, oh, they're difficult. I just don't want to deal with them. I just want this conversation to be over. So maybe just stop and pause and say, okay, so they're being difficult right now. I may be seeing it a bit more objectively to think, hey, actually, what's driving them being difficult and demanding? Do they have some insecurity? Are they anxious or unclear about certain things? And by tuning into actually what could be driving the customer's behavior in that certain way, we are not just always in the realm of they are difficult, this is bad, I want this to stop, but actually going deeper to recognize what emotions are driving the customer's behavior to then, okay, open up more possibilities to see how you can support the customer better. So when you go into a deeper conversation exploration of the learner's way of being, then when they're faced with a situation like this, difficult people, they're able to then demonstrate more empathy, more flexibility, more openness, and not just, I just want this conversation to end. I'm just gonna placate the customer and all that, but I just don't want to deal with this anymore. There's a bit of disengagement there. Okay, so today's sharing was really brief. Overall, where I wanted to land you on is what can your training programs look like if they were designed for what learners do and for how people see and feel. Because our way of being shapes our doing. And when we start there, we can then witness shifts in people, even in the motivation that they have after training programs or in how they apply on what they're learning. Okay, so that was all I had. And I saw there was a question in the chat, which I wanted to address.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will probably at this point then just open the whole round up as well, because we can definitely start with the question there. That's a perfect segue. But yeah, thank you very much for sharing. I think very insightful session. I think really some points that probably give a new angle on things. And I think especially the kind of point of normalizing uncertainty, for example, in unfamiliar contexts can be quite powerful if we do that and don't have this expectation of having to know and having to be comfortable in everything that's new as well. Yeah, thank you very much. I will quickly reshare my screen as well. And then we will hop back to our opening session, or the part where we open up the session as well. And yeah, we did see a question just now. I will also quickly reopen the chat here from Wan Chuan. How can you ensure the participants are honest and clear, especially with themselves? A lot of times I see people just give vague answers or just say they don't know. Yeah, I'll probably leave this to you first, Kaying, but of course, everyone else feel free to then chip in as well. Maybe they have similar problems or even approaches to solve with situations like that.
Yeah, thanks, Max. And thanks, Marsha, for your question. It's a really prevalent one. Okay, a short answer I'll give to that is that is something to be expected. Where if participants don't feel that they're safe, that they won't share as openly, or and they'll hold back, or they actually don't know, right? I think one thing that people often may do is, as in people, as in like, let's say the trainers or people, let's say they facilitate such spaces for people to talk, and then they actually notice that like participants are not sharing, not being forthcoming for due to certain concerns. There is a tendency, and I'm generalizing here, of course, there is a tendency to maybe just rush past. Oh, no one has any questions. Okay, don't know, and then we move on. Because there can be a tendency to have to not want to stay in the discomfort of holding that space for participants. And I'm talking here as a coach, right? Putting on that coaching hat. When people say vague answers or they don't know, actually that's something to start with. What do you mean by you don't know? What about it is like maybe you're unsure about? When they give vague answers, when they say, "Oh yeah, it's okay," it's like, what does okay mean for you? What does it look like? Because your okay can be very different. Sorry, from my okay, right? And actually, just by continuing to put on the coaching hat, it doesn't just remain at the language you're getting back from them, right? Their answers, their literal answers, but also actually, how are you observing what their body is saying? Maybe they're like closed, they're defensive, or like they're hesitant, unsure. And it could be just pointing out, say, I'm sensing there's something that you're thinking about. Like, what could it be? It takes a bit of patience. It takes a bit of willingness to stay in that silence that people often are not willing to stay in silence, or that discomfort, to then give very non-verbally or implicitly the permission for participants to then say, okay, I'm going to take this chance on you, or on this sharing session I'm going to share. And then another good tip would be to then start off by role modeling your own experience, on what you're seeing. I don't know if I'm answering your question. About Meridian 73855 room. Do you want to share a bit more, Wan Xuan? If you could unmute and
Hi, can I be heard?
yes.
Okay, so basically this rule is saying that when people talk this 73855, only 7% of what they say is actually what they mean. And then 55% is their body language and 38 of it is their tone. So when people talk about their experiences or share about themselves, or maybe even in general, when they say something, you have to look more at their body language and how they say it rather than what they say, because it usually means more than just their words, which would change your perspective. So they could say they like something, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do they like it? You have to look at their body language and look at their tone. Are they really excited when they say it, or are they very monotonous? Do they present a very outspoken approach, or are they very closed in on themselves? And that would change your understanding of how excited they are. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this rule. I absolutely agree with you. And I think you brought up a good tool actually, the Likert scale, or maybe like the rating, right, from like 1 to 10, and actually what are you feeling or learning or taking away from a certain program. That could be a really good tool as well to check in. If a participant is saying, oh, it's a 5, typically if they're like on the fence and like, okay, so if you put a 5, you know what a 5 is, then what would a 10 look like? Be like B for you, right? It applies as well if we put a 7 or 8. Okay, what does that mean for you? Because I again could have a very different view of 8. And then okay, then what does that plus 2? If you add in, what would that look like for you? Yeah, I think overall it's also really actively listening in on the participants, but also having that sensitivity to say, I'm not going to just push too much, like verbally, but just listening in and saying, okay, what does that inform about what you're going to do next as a facilitator or a trainer? But thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Wanshan. Thanks for asking the question and also bringing up that rule for everyone. Yeah, please feel free, everyone, to join in. Maybe give a quick introduction, where you're joining from, and then of course feel free to ask any questions as well, or share your experience with similar situations. Maybe we had quite a few people mentioning earlier that one of the obstacles they face is how to keep engagement or motivation high as well. So maybe we can also talk about how we can address those things. Yeah, maybe we can just go through the participants here a little bit, give everyone the chance to quickly yeah, share a little bit as well. I have Sue Renee on here as well. Not sure, Sue Renee, if you can hear me, if there's something you want to ask maybe, or something you want to share as well.
So maybe just to chip in and explain again, so that we had now this initial discussion on this topic, and the idea is now that we go into a more networking event where everybody can very briefly introduce themselves, what they're doing, what they're working on. You can share any questions you have on this topic, but you can also say, hey, I'm actually working on something completely different. Does anybody here has an idea on how to do this? So it's really an open session where you can let me actually start. So my name is Christian. I'm here the CEO of Blue Elephant Solutions. I'm actually currently in Germany, not in Singapore, where Blue Elephant Solutions is based. We're working on many different projects. A lot of them are AI driven. And actually, what I took from this call is that I'm actually now thinking on how can we apply this to the AI when we hyper personalize training content, so that we take the personal situation more into consideration. So that, for example, the same compliance training might be different for somebody who is freshly onboarded and somebody who's in the organization since a long time. For the newly onboarded, we maybe don't want to overwhelm him with too many details, but give him a high-level overview of the compliance guidelines, whereby somebody who is longer in the organization, we might give him more details. And if somebody is in a new leadership role, we might emphasize on other topics. So I think that is something that I took from this meeting, and definitely want to follow up with you, Ying, on this one also later. I think that would be quite interesting. And then everybody else who is in the call can open their mic and start introducing themselves in this manner, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, so that we can really network a little bit.
We have one question from Surene here in the chat as well, regarding the change of market trends and how do we train Gen Z. People nowadays don't like the old way of teaching. So what's your advice? Yeah, maybe I'll open this up to everyone here as well. I think yeah, probably a lot of people you bring quite a bit of experience in similar situations and learning and development in general. So would be great to hear your thoughts as well.
I love the questions coming in.
Anyone? No need to be shy. It's a smaller round, so we can actually have a very good discussion here, I think. So please feel free, everyone, to unmute yourselves and chip in.
Maybe I give my thoughts on Surene's question regarding Gen Z and the training. What I experienced when I was in heading a learning and development department in Asia is that gamification is actually a wonder weapon in this space. So if you make training more approachable, more fun, and that could be simple things. We're not talking about make a game. We're talking about gamification elements. That's, for example, you give points for certain tasks that people do, or you have a leaderboard where you can compare yourself with your peers, or you do have some kind of battle where you can, see who answers faster the questions that are in this space. So this kind of competition, but also gamification elements where you can earn badges, level 1, level 2, level 3, always easy to achieve goals. And there's always goals that you can achieve instead of this 5-hour-long training, and then you need to have a lot of questions to be asked later on. So gamification is definitely something, but you can also actually not only gamify learning, you can even bring it a step further. We Max, maybe we can share that later here, but only for this round. A small demo where you can, for example, upload your training content and it generates an escape room scenario out of this. So you still need to answer the question correctly, but now you're in an escape room and it explains you like, there's this lock and it's locked with 3 keys and you first need to unlock the 3 keys. And so it brings you on a journey and makes it much more approachable and engaging. I think that's definitely one of the tricks for the Gen Z topic.
If I can add on.
Yeah.
Okay,
Of
I
course.
got momentarily distracted by Wen Shen's, and I love what's coming in actually, the discussion on the chat. Just gonna read what she's saying as well. Many of my peers lose focus when you start talking about something that doesn't relate to them. Gen Zs are quick on their feet, push them, give them the ability to think outside the box instead of just talking, they'll hate it. Yeah, I think what I wanted to share is also in a way, in the same vein as what Wan Shen is saying, my advice would be to ask them, outside of the work context, what has been your best way of learning? And here I'm again talking as a coach with some L&D background, right? Looking at the learner's way of being. How do you learn best? What are your concerns or resistance towards the old way of teaching? What about it are you not comfortable with or you don't like? Right? And from there, just find out more about how you can tweak it to their way of learning. I hope whatever we shared so far, Serene, like, does that cover sufficiently like your curiosity? Or if anything else, like feel free to like put in the chat because I know you lost your voice. So could this
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, yeah, we do have quite a few questions. Maybe it's really easier if we just ask directly. So I have a question from Harfeed also. Could this method be applied in a large group? Wondering if the method could be accepted in low educated worker. They also have the right to be developed, obviously. Any advice? Maybe Hafid, you could elaborate a little bit as well. What method exactly you're thinking of right now? Then we can, maybe again shoot this to the people here. Can you hear me, Hafid? Maybe maybe you could quickly let me know, Hafid, if you can unmute yourself and quickly elaborate on that. If not, then just to be mindful of everyone's time, maybe we move on to Surene again then.
I'm actually wondering if Hafid's question could be around the sharing that I was speaking with Wan Xuan about. If that's the case, yeah, I'm not, yeah, maybe it's better for Hafid to clarify and not assume what it is.
Yeah, I think until if not, Surene also.
Oh, okay. Hafid actually
Okay.
just typed something. Too personalized for a large community. How do you apply in a more? Ah, okay. Okay. Can I take this question, Max?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay. Short answer, Hafid, is that it can be done in a large group setting. It may not be as intense or go as deeply as it can be with in a one-to-one context, but it can be pitched where it can be a very simple question for them to think about their way of being. It could be, what are you feeling about that? What is one new thought that you had from that? So you pitch it at a level that they understand, but it's also not about rushing to then say, how are you going to apply that or apply it tomorrow? Because they may have some thoughts, concerns, or fears or whatever that could very well hold them back, right? So I'd say it's still doable. It's how do you design it in a way that speaks to them using their language. Let me know if that answers your question. Feel free to type in or just unmute. Max and Christian as well, if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not an expert in that field, but I would have probably also seen it in a similar way. I think it's just about whether you're able also to create this kind of atmosphere where people are comfortable in sharing that, which doesn't need to be, or necessarily probably wouldn't be automatically like a quick fix, not like a snip of your fingers situation. But I think when you have a group that's comfortable among each other and being open with each other, I think that's probably possible as well. I'm just going through the chat quickly here, because I think there was another question earlier. Okay.
There's a question from Anand, I think. In what ways can we apply this into a student's or trainee's learning experience in a face-to-face session and make this engaging? Would you want to take this up first, or? I'll just start
Sorry,
first then. Yeah, no problem.
Sorry, go ahead.
To make it engaging. Okay, so by your question, you're talking about during the training program, right? To make it engaging. So I'm going to assume that's the case. Yes, okay. So you can do it through various activities. It really depends on the readiness of the participants and how supported and safe they feel during the training program. So one very simple activity, if you're not just using the very typical method of, let's say, sit in one circle and talk, because that can sometimes, you lose a bit of energy from the participants, or they expect that kind of format. So they're just not going to say as much or put themselves as much into it. It's like, okay, just want to move on. One interactive activity that can be done is to, let's say, get them to stand in a line according to a scale of, like, let's say 1 to 10. How are they feeling about the program? About, let's say they have some questions about the program, or and from that line, and then you can then tease out, okay, like what's on your mind, like what got you to stand here as opposed to there, what are some gaps you may be experiencing for yourself in your learning. Add in some movement. It doesn't always have to be a sit and talk situation. Does that answer your question, Anand? Cool.
Yes. Okay. Great. Cool. Anyone else who has any questions? We still have Fatme on. We have Sida on as well. Gavin. Anyone else who wants to ask something, share something, please feel free to do so.
I have a curiosity actually. If each of you got something out of this sharing, or this discussion we're having as well, type in like 1 on the chat. Or if you feel, you know what, I didn't learn anything new, or I feel like nothing changed, type in 5. Right? I just want to get a sense of like what you're taking away from this session. And I love, all that discussion we're having afterwards. Typing 1. Oh, what's 2? Is there like a in between 1 and 5?
I'm sorry, 1 was the we've learned a lot, and 5 is the we haven't learned so
you've
much?
learned something. Yeah, you've learned
Okay, like
something. You've
school
taken
grading.
away an
Okay.
insight, a question to think about more. 5 is nope, nothing changed.
Okay. So we don't have any 5s. Oh.
We have a 2, and I'm curious
We have a
about that.
2. We have 1, 2. The others are straight 1s. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, I think for me personally also very interesting. I think it's my main takeaway from this would probably be, and I hope that's in line with the discussion as well, but my takeaway from this is to be comfortable not being comfortable, if that makes sense. To basically embrace like a discomfort in new and unfamiliar situations, and be okay with that, and be aware of where I am in my professional journey, learning journey, whichever it is, and then work from there. And I think once we are open to admit that to ourselves, we can, and the next step would then be to others, of course, but we can then, yeah, probably absorb things in a more practical way for us. That would be my key takeaway from today's session.
Thanks for sharing that, Max. And Anand, I just saw the chat came in with another question. I'm curious to know how we can also use the secondary link to the goal to design a course or lesson. I'm not sure what you mean by secondary link. Could you elaborate, Anand?
Okay, I'm going to try and speak. There's a lot of background noise. In one of your slides, I think the second or third one, where you have the primary goal going to the first one, the person living his life today. And then there's a congruence of the 3 different components. I'm trying to find out how we can use a situation like that when you have a more complex set of needs. And the things that you've just taught, how do we use that and apply to make our, whether it's an online or a pedagogical setup, and how you use these tools to make that session or the lesson or the course a little bit more interesting.
Thanks for clarifying, Anand. if let me read back to make sure I'm getting what you're saying. It's the slide that showed the 3 domains and then the actions, behaviors, and results, and then do you
Yeah,
mind if
that's the one. Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
And so at the bottom I didn't cover it, but there was is it Max, is it okay if I reshare my screen just to
Yeah,
yeah?
sure.
Cool, thanks. Just want to bring it up so that everyone can see it as well when
Yeah.
you're not talking in the abstract. 1 second. I think this is the one you're referring to, yeah?
It's loading currently.
Yeah,
there it is.
yeah. So Anna, your question is around how do we apply this second order learning? Essentially, how do we bring that up a bit more in getting people to explore these 3 domains in programs and to make it interesting?
Yeah. So you have
Yeah?
3 different variations or areas that you can use. How do you balance this to in your lesson plans or your course plan to try and you make it a little bit more interesting, make it something more engaging so that you can absorb a lot more learning objectives that you want to put across?
I love that question. There are so many activities we could try, and I'm just gonna, put in something a bit more interesting here by saying how can we then put in a bit more somatic element if I talk about the body, right, to make the lesson plan interesting, to then give you as the trainer insights onto how are my participants doing? Are they learning anything new? Or like what are they thinking about right now? An example of an activity could be for them to show through their body what would success in their role and I'm just speaking hypotheticals here, I'm not sure what your lesson plan is about. What would success in their role look like in a year, right? Show it their body. What is their vision for what they want to achieve? And everyone will have a different disposition, different body. And we can talk about that for them to share a bit more. Or it could be for them to stand up. If it's like a sit-down situation, they're listening to the speaker in front, stand up, find something, a piece of furniture in the room or something that represents what you are taking away from the session. Anything, because I'm also I've done a bit of learning as well in brain-based learning, where we will make sense of things no matter what, right? When let's say they're like, oh, why are you asking me to find a random furniture? I'll just grab something that catches my eye, but how I make sense of it and associate with it from what I'm learning from the training, there will be things to talk about, which will then be unique to myself as a person. So play around with it. It doesn't have to be a very serious conversation about fears and concerns all the time. It could also be aspirational. Does that answer your question? I just want to make sure that we kind of hit some marks around there on what you're asking.
Yeah, he says it helps in the chat.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, I think we are pretty much spot on time-wise. So yeah, I will probably close out the session today then. But again, obviously, if anyone still has any questions, feel free to reach out to us, reach out to Ying, of course. Make sure to check out the podcast as well. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining today. I hope you guys did find it insightful and could take something away. Yeah, from today's event. And yeah, as I said in the beginning, we do host them on a regular basis. So yeah, I hope we can see you another time as well in one of the future events on different topics as well. If you guys have specific topics that you would like to have discussed, yeah, reach out as well. And we can see if that's something we can also take up in one of the future events. Thanks everyone, and yeah, have a nice rest of the week then.
Thank you. It was really nice talking to you. Have a good weekend.
All right. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.